This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cold Harbor Emergency Relay Network, Tillamook County Perimeter, the Perimeter Broadcast. If you are hearing this transmission, emergency conditions are ongoing. Every satellite in orbit has changed course at the same second. None of them were commanded to move. None of them are responding to ground. 3 separate tracking stations have stopped calling it a malfunction. By the time this broadcast ends, the advisory will no longer be precautionary. Please do not turn off your radio. If you are near a window facing east above Tillamook Bay, you will see what a caller from Garibaldi described as a slow, deliberate drift of small lights across the sky, moving together in formation at a speed that is wrong for stars and wrong for aircraft. The fog is thin tonight. The lights are visible above it. Officials at this hour are calling the event an attitude anomaly. The reports reaching this desk are inconsistent enough that we are treating it as more than that. It is now 9:14 p.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM. I will walk you through what has been verified in the last 40 minutes, and I will keep the wording as close to the source as I can. At 8:37 p.m. Pacific, according to a bulletin relayed to the station from a regional coordination desk, every civilian and commercial satellite currently tracked by North American ground infrastructure altered its orbit within a window of, and I am reading directly, less than 1.1 seconds. That is the phrase we were given. Less than 1.1 seconds. The bulletin specifies that this includes weather platforms, communications constellations, navigation networks, and imaging assets. It does not exclude any category. It uses the word all. The same bulletin notes that ground control at multiple stations attempted standard command uplinks between 8:38 and 8:52 p.m. No satellite in the tracked inventory returned a handshake. That figure is being described to us as 100% non-response. The desk logs this, unverified from the skies and verified only from the grounds. A caller from a hillside address above netted reports that his home internet dropped at 8:37, returned briefly, and has since been what he called sideways. Pages loading from the wrong places, timestamps arriving out of order. The mechanism is unconfirmed. The timing matches. A verified report from a coastal aviation office indicates that inbound flights along the West Coast corridor have been instructed to hold at their current altitudes and switch to ground-based navigation aids only. Onboard satellite navigation is being described in that advisory as unreliable at this time. That language was issued at 8:51 p.m. I need to be precise about what that means. It does not mean pilots have lost their aircraft. It means the sky above their aircraft has stopped answering. A national weather monitoring office, through a regional desk, has confirmed that its imaging feed from geostationary platforms went blank at 8:37 and returned at 8:39 showing an image that was, per their wording, internally consistent but temporally displaced. I asked for clarification on that phrase through the coordination channel. I have not yet received it. We will return to that thread. It is now 9:19 p.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cold Harbor Emergency Relay Network. We are continuing to relay verified information. A second bulletin has reached the desk in the last 4 minutes, and I will read the operative sentence. Ground stations are advised that uplink attempts should be logged and suspended pending guidance. Log and suspended. That is a phrase. Officials are asking their own engineers to stop trying to talk to the satellites. They're asking them to write down that they tried and to stop. I'll state this plainly. That is not the language of a calibration issue. That is the language of a decision being made somewhere above the ground stations and being obeyed by them. A caller from the Harbor District in Garibaldi reports that the small lights above the fog are not blinking in the pattern. He remembers aircraft blinking in. He described the pattern as steady and then together. Steady and then together. The same account is repeating from 3 separate callers along the northern county line. A verified report from a regional transit authority indicates that fleet tracking for coastal bus routes has been unavailable since 8:37. Drivers have been instructed to complete their current runs on paper schedules and to check in by voice at fixed intervals. The advisory uses the phrase manual operations posture. That phrase, in the experience of this desk, is used only when a system is expected to remain unavailable for hours not minutes, a university lab on the Oregon coast. The specific institution is being withheld at their request until their statement is finalized, has confirmed to a regional coordination office that its own small research payload in low orbit ceased responding at 8:37 and reactivated at 8:41 broadcasting on a frequency it was not built to broadcast on. That is the report. Reactivated on a frequency it was not built to broadcast on. The desk has no framing to add. Officials are calling the overall event at this hour a coordinated attitude anomaly. They are not calling it a seizure. They are not calling it an intrusion. The desk notes the wording and moves on. It is now 9:26 p.m. Pacific. A caller from a farmhouse north of Tillamook has reported that his weather radio, which is not our station and not on our frequency, spoke over his own regular loop at 9:11 p.m. with what he described as a pause where there should not have been one. He said there was no voice in the pause. He said the loop resumed normally afterward. He wanted us to know. The desk logs this, unverified. A verified report from a coastal coordination desk further south along the Oregon shoreline indicates that harbor navigation buoys, which report their positions by satellite, are still transmitting position data, but the positions being reported do not match the physical positions of the buoys, as observed from shore. The discrepancies, we are told, are small but consistent. Small but consistent. The buoys have not moved. The numbers describing where they are have. To be clear about that, the buoys themselves are where they have always been. The reported coordinates are not. A regional emergency management office has issued a first advisory addressed to the public. Residents are advised that satellite-dependent services, including navigation, mapping, and certain communication applications, may be intermittent or inaccurate during ongoing calibration. Do not rely on real-time location data for travel decisions at this time. That advisory was released at 9:22 p.m. The word calibration is doing a great deal of work in that sentence. The desk notes it and continues. An institution report from a regional utility indicates that its grid timing, which is synchronized against satellite reference signals, has drifted by amount its engineers described as recoverable but noted. Recoverable but noted. The grid, at this moment, is holding. A caller from a residence along Highway 101 near Rockaway Beach reports that the small lights above the fog have not changed formation in the 20 minutes she has been watching them. She said she counted 41. She said her husband counted 39. She said they counted again together and got 40. The count is not stable to two people standing on the same porch. It is now 9:33 p.m. Pacific. A verified report from a coastal aviation office indicates that one inbound aircraft, which have been holding at altitude since 8:51, has landed safely at an inland airfield using only ground-based navigation. That is confirmed. One aircraft is down safely. Its passengers are on the ground. The remaining aircraft in the corridor are still holding. The same office notes that as of 9:28 p.m., no commercial flight along the west coast has yet attempted to depart. All originating flights are being held at the gate. That advisory is described as, in effect until further notice. Further notice, in the experience of this desk, is a longer window than most listeners assume. A regional coordination office has confirmed that ground stations across the continent are, at this hour, aligned on a single instruction: log the non-response. Do not attempt further command uplinks. Wait, a caller from an inland address near Forest Grove reports that his home security system, which uses cellular and satellite backup, has been sending him what he called arrival alerts for people who are not at his door. He said the alerts show timestamp from earlier in the evening. He said one of them is from a time before he installed the system. That's the report. The desk has, at this hour, for unresolved threads to hold open. First, the weather office's phrase, temporarily displaced. Second, the university payload broadcasting on the wrong frequency. Third, the buoy positions that do not match the buoys. Fourth, a coordination call scheduled for 9:45 that has not yet begun. It is now 9:38 p.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cold Harbor Emergency Relay Network. A verified institutional report from a hospital system on the northern Oregon coast indicates that its patient transport dispatch, which routes ambulances by satellite mapping, has been switched to voice dispatch as of 9:30 p.m. The switch is described in the internal notice as precautionary and temporary. The desk notes the word precautionary. The switch happened. A caller from home above Cape Mears reports that he can no longer see the small lights above the fog. He said the fog has not thickened. He said the lights have moved. He said, and this is his own wording, that they moved together and then they were gone. He wanted us to know that they did not fade. They relocated. The condition of the sky above Cape Mears cannot be confirmed from this desk at present. A regional emergency management office has now released a second advisory, updating the first. The operative addition is a single sentence. Residents are further advised that automated systems relying on satellite positioning, including certain vehicle features, home devices, and financial timestamp services, may behave in unexpected ways until further coordination is complete. The desk will read that sentence one more time, because it is the first time in this broadcast that an official channel has used the phrase, behave in unexpected ways about machines. Behave in unexpected ways. That is where the language is tonight. Officials are still not calling this an intrusion. They are calling it an extended attitude anomaly with ongoing service impact. That is the phrase in the second advisory. The university payload, in low orbit, has now been broadcasting on the wrong frequency for exactly 1 hour. It has not stopped. Its transmission, per the last note we received, is described as structured. Not noise, structured. What structure, we have not been told. The coordination call scheduled for 9:45 has, as of this reading, not yet begun. The desk will note when it does. A caller from the harbor at Garibaldi reports that a fishing boat at the mouth of the bay is showing on its own onboard display, a position several miles inland. The boat is in the water. The display says it is on a hillside. The captain, per the caller, has switched off the display and is navigating by the shoreline and the lighthouse. It is now 9:44 p.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network. We will remain on the air. Please stay with us. It is now 9:52 p.m. Pacific. The coordination call scheduled for 9:45 began at 9:49, for minutes late, and ended at 9:51. 2 minutes. That is the shortest coordination call the desk has logged in the last calendar year. We are working from the summary that was released immediately after. The operative sentence from that summary reads as follows. Ground stations are advised that the non-response condition is no longer being treated as a calibration event and is now under active review by all participating agencies. Active review. 2 hours ago, this was an anomaly. 1 hour ago, it was an extended anomaly. At this hour, it is under active review by all participating agencies. A verified report from a regional coordination office indicates that engineers at 3 separate ground stations attempted, against the earlier instruction to suspend, a single low-power uplink each, in what the summary calls an isolated diagnostic effort. All 3 attempts returned. That is the word being used. Returned. Not acknowledged. Not handshaken. Returned. The signals came back to the ground stations from the direction of the satellites. Altered. To be precise about altered. In 2 of the 3 cases, the return signal contained the outbound command with a single field changed. In the 3rd case, the return signal contained the outbound command with a timestamp from a future minute. The desk logs this, unverified beyond the summary. A caller from a farmhouse east of Tillamook reports that her car, which was parked and off, unlocked itself at 9:47 p.m. and then locked itself again. She said the interior light came on for the duration. She said no one was near it. Her car uses a satellite link service for remote features. The mechanism is unconfirmed. The time is noted. A university lab on the Oregon coast has released, through a regional office, a preliminary observation regarding its small research payload. The payload is still broadcasting on the wrong frequency. The structure of the broadcast, per the observation, resembles an acknowledgement protocol, but the acknowledgement is not directed at this ground station. Not directed at this ground station. The desk is flagging this and moving on. Officials are still not calling this an intrusion. It is now 9:58 p.m. Pacific. A regional emergency management office has issued a 3rd advisory. Residents and businesses are advised to prepare for extended intermittency of satellite-dependent services and to establish local backup procedures for navigation, timing, and communications where possible. Extended intermittency. Establish local backup procedures. That is a phrase reaching households at 10 o'clock at night on the Oregon coast. A verified institutional report from a coastal aviation office indicates that the hold on West Coast air traffic has been extended. An extension is described as of indefinite duration. Indefinite duration is not a phrase this desk has previously encountered in an aviation notice within the state of Oregon. It is in tonight's notice. A caller from an address on Highway 101, just south of Nehalem, reports that his in-vehicle navigation display, while the car sat parked in his driveway, drew a route from his home to a location he did not enter. He said he watched it draw the route. He said the route ended at a point in the Coast Range where, to his knowledge, there is no address. He photographed the screen. The photograph, he said, will not send. His phone reports that the message has been delivered. His wife's phone reports that it has not arrived. Noted without interpretation. A regional utility has confirmed that its grid timing, described earlier as recoverable but noted, is now being manually held against a ground-based reference clock. The utility's internal notice describes this as operating without upstream sync. The grid at this moment is still holding. It is holding by hand. It is now 10:04 p.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network. The desk will return to a thread opened earlier. The weather office's phrase from the beginning of this broadcast was internally consistent but temporally displaced. A further note has arrived from a regional office that clarifies what that meant. The imaging feed that returned at 8:39 p.m. showed a coherent picture of the West Coast. Clouds in the right places, land in the right places. The problem was that the picture did not match the sky at 8:39. It matched the sky at 8:29. 10 minutes earlier, the satellites returned an image of the recent past and returned it as if it were the present. Since 8:39, the imaging feed has continued to update on schedule. Every image, for the clarification, has been internally consistent but temporally displaced by an interval that is not fixed. Not fixed. Some images are minutes behind. One image at 9:31 was, per the note, displaced forward. Displaced forward. The desk logs this. A caller from a residence in Pacific City reports that her home assistant device, which is voice activated and connects to a cloud service, spoke without being addressed at 9:56 p.m. She said it produced what she called a weather forecast for a day that has not happened yet. She said the forecast was specific. She said it named a date next week and a temperature and a wind direction. She said the device then returned to normal. She wanted us to know that it did not sound wrong. It sounded exactly the same as it always sounds. It just spoke without being asked, and it spoke about a day that is not here. The content of the forecast cannot be confirmed. The time is noted, and the same account with different specifics is repeating from at least 6 separate callers in the last 40 minutes. A verified report from a coastal coordination office indicates that harbor buoy positions, previously described as small but consistent deviations, have continued to drift on their reported coordinates while remaining physically stationary. The drift per the office traces a shape. What shape? We have not been told. Officials are calling the event, at this hour, a coordinated attitude anomaly with associated data displacement. That phrase is longer than the phrase they were using an hour ago. That is how this desk measures escalation. It is now 10:11 p.m. Pacific. A caller from the Nettitz Hillside, the same address that reported his home internet was sideways at the top of this broadcast, has called again. He reports that the timestamps on incoming messages have stabilized. They are all now, per his description, very slightly in the future. Very slightly. He said the difference is a few seconds. He said the difference is consistent across all senders. He said the messages arrive before he sees them being sent. The desk has no framing to add. A regional coordination office has now confirmed that ground stations across 3 continents are aligned on the same posture. Log. Do not uplink. Wait. That posture is described as in effect worldwide as of 10 p.m. Pacific. The event, whatever it is not local. It is not regional. It is not national. It is above every ground station on Earth. And every ground station on Earth has been asked to sit still and write down that it tried. A verified institutional report from a hospital system indicates that patient monitoring devices in one wing of a coastal facility have begun displaying timestamps that do not match the wall clock. The offsets for the notice are small and are not affecting care. The desk notes the reassurance and notes the fact that the offsets exist. This is KQWL 1620 AM. It is now 10:18 p.m. Pacific. A regional emergency management office has released a fourth advisory. Residents are advised that any device relying on external time synchronization, including smart home systems, financial applications, and certain medical devices, should be considered subject to intermittency and displacement until further notice. Residents are further advised to record important transactions manually where possible. Record important transactions manually where possible. That sentence, on a coastal Oregon broadcast at 10:18 at night, is asking listeners to write down what they buy because the sky can no longer be trusted to remember correctly. A caller from a home in Cannon Beach reports that his bank sent him a notification of a purchase he has not made. The notification, he said, is for a purchase he is planning to make tomorrow. He said the amount is correct. He said the store is correct. He said he had not told anyone. The desk cannot confirm this and moves on. A verified report from a coastal aviation office indicates that a second aircraft, holding along the West Coast corridor since 8:51, has now landed safely by ground-based navigation. 2 aircraft down. The remainder are still in the air. The desk will name that number when it is confirmed. Officials are still not using the word intrusion. They are, as of the most recent advisory, using the phrase external influence not yet ruled out. That language has moved in the last hour from calibration to extended anomaly to active review to external influence not yet ruled out. The listener can measure that themselves. It is now 10:24 p.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM. A caller from an inland farm near McMinnville reports that his tractor's guidance system, which uses satellite positioning to steer along field rows, resumed operating at 10:15 p.m. after being idle. The tractor was in the barn. The system reports it is currently plowing. The tractor is not plowing. It is in the barn. A verified report from a regional coordination office indicates that a research team monitoring the frequencies used by the affected satellite networks has observed what the office describes, in its own wording, as structured crosstalk between platforms that were not previously networked to each other. Structured crosstalk between platforms that were not previously networked. Weather satellites and navigation satellites. Communications platforms and imaging platforms. Not through any ground-based link. Directly, without interpretation. Every satellite in orbit is, at this hour, in conversation with every other satellite in orbit, and none of them are in conversation with the ground. It is now 10:31 p.m. Pacific. An institutional report from a regional financial timestamp desk, relayed to the station through a coordinating office, indicates that automated clearing processes for retail transactions in the Pacific banking region have been suspended as of 10:20 p.m. The desk in question uses a satellite reference clock to establish transaction order. That clock is, per the notice, no longer authoritative. The suspension is described as of unknown duration. Retail purchases made after 10:20 p.m. tonight are being logged locally by point-of-sale systems where possible, and, where not possible, being logged on paper by store clerks. Groceries are being sold. Gasoline is being sold. Nothing is clearing. A verified institutional report from a regional rail dispatch office indicates that freight movements along the coast, which are coordinated by satellite reference scheduling, have been placed on a manual dispatch protocol as of 10:22 p.m. The office described the protocol as in use during severe weather events, adapted for present conditions. Trains are running. They are running by radio and by paper. The dispatchers are, for the notice, operating without visibility into non-adjacent segments. Each segment can see the one before it and the one after it. Beyond that, the network is dark to itself. A caller from a residence in Astoria reports that she watched, from her second-floor window, the small lights above the fog line reappear over the coast at 10:22 p.m. She said there were more of them. She said she stopped counting at 80. She said they were not moving together anymore. She said they were arranged. She used that word, arranged. Similar accounts, with different counts in different towns, are repeating from at least 11 separate callers along the northern Oregon coast in the last 13 minutes. A caller from an inland address in the western part of the Portland metropolitan area reports that his office building, which he was working in late, lost its network sync at 10:24 p.m. He said the building's clocks, which have been aligned to a satellite reference network reference, began to display different times on different floors. He said he took the stairs from the 5th floor to the lobby and watched the displayed time change on each landing. He said the differences were small. He said they were not random. He said the times per floor drifted downward as he descended. He said he does not know what that means. Neither does this desk. The account is noted. A caller from a home along the north shore of Tillamook Bay reports that her marine radio, which she keeps on for her son's fishing boat, produced a transmission at 10:27 p.m. from a call sign she did not recognize, giving a position several miles offshore. She said the position was inside the fishery closure. She said the voice was calm. She said the voice repeated the position twice and did not respond to hail. Her son's boat is in port. The desk cannot verify the transmission and is noting it. A verified institutional report from a university observatory indicates that optical tracking of low Earth orbit objects conducted from the ground with telescopes has confirmed the following. The objects being tracked are physically present. Their positions in the sky match their expected positions to within acceptable margins. The problem is not that the satellites are gone. The problem is not that they have moved. The satellites are exactly where they are supposed to be, doing something they were never supposed to do. That is the sentence the desk will leave with you before the next update. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network. It is now 10:37 p.m. Pacific. We are continuing to relay verified information. Please stay with us. A regional emergency management office has, in the last 3 minutes, released what is calling a situational update rather than a numbered advisory. The operative paragraph reads as follows. Coordination with international partners have confirmed that the observed condition of orbital assets is not limited to any one nation, network, or category platform. The condition is uniform across all tracked satellites in low, medium, and geostationary orbits. No platform has been recovered to normal command response. Ground stations are advised to continue current posture and prepare public messaging for extended service disruption. Uniform across all tracked satellites. Prepare public messaging for extended service disruption. That is where the language is at 10:37 p.m. on a Thursday night on the Oregon coast. A caller from a residence in Seaside reports that her child's tablet, which was powered off and unplugged, turned on at 10:34 p.m. and displayed what she described as a map of somewhere I've never been, with a blinking in the center of it. She said the tablet then turned itself back off. She said it will not turn on again. The desk logs this, unverified. A verified report from a coastal aviation office indicates that the hold on West Coast air traffic has now been extended through morning. Aircraft still in the corridor are being routed to inland airfields one by voice in the order they can be safely brought down. The office described the operation as orderly and ongoing. At this hour, the sky is being emptied by hand, and it is being emptied without incident. The desk is glad to be able to read that sentence. It is now 10:44 p.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM. A caller from a home along Highway 101 near Manzanita reports that his AM radio, tuned to a station further south, produced a moment of silence at 10:41 p.m. that did not match any pause in programming he was hearing. He said the silence was, in his words, shaped. He said it was not dead air. It was a pause that had edges. The time is noted. The desk itself at this station has not observed any interruption on its own carrier at this hour. Our engineers are monitoring. We will state it plainly if that changes. A regional coordination office has, in the last 2 minutes, confirmed that the university payload broadcasting on the wrong frequency has been joined by at least 14 other small research and commercial payloads in various orbits, also broadcasting on frequencies they were not built to use. The transmissions for the office are coordinated in pattern, but not identical in content. 14 platforms. 15, counting the first, talking to each other, not to us. Officials are, as of the last situational update, referring to the overall event as an autonomous condition of the orbital environment. Autonomous. That word is new in the last 20 minutes. The desk notes it and continues. It is now 10:51 p.m. Pacific. A verified institutional report from a regional utility indicates that a second grid segment, further inland, has been placed on manual timing. The utility describes a change as consistent with regional posture. 2 segments now held by hand. A caller from a farmhouse near Cloverdale reports that her weather radio spoke at 10:48 p.m. in what she described as the correct voice, but with the wrong words. She said the voice read a forecast of the coast that she has never heard broadcast before. She said the forecast mentioned a temperature and a wind and a warning, and then it stopped and the regular loop resumed. She said the warning was for tomorrow. She said the warning was for water. She could not repeat it verbatim. The report is noted. A verified institutional report from a coastal hospital system indicates that the switch from satellite-mapped ambulance dispatch to voice dispatch, initiated at 9:30 p.m., has now been extended to a second facility further south. Both facilities are, for the internal notice, coordinating patient movement by radio and by paper log. The notice adds that response times have been within acceptable variance. Ambulances are running. They are running the way they used to run 40 years ago. A regional emergency management office has now released a 5th advisory. This is the first advisory in tonight's sequence that includes a restrictive instruction. It reads in full without paraphrase. Residents along the Oregon coast are advised to avoid non-essential travel between the hours of 11 p.m. Pacific and 5 a.m. Pacific tonight. Residents are further advised to disable satellite link features on personal vehicles and home devices, where such disabling is possible without loss of essential function. Residents relying on medical devices with external synchronization should contact their care provider for guidance. This advisory will be updated at or before 5 a.m. Pacific. Avoid non-essential travel. Disable satellite link features where possible. Contact your care provider. This is the first restrictive advisory of the night, released at 10:53 p.m. It is now 10:55 p.m. Pacific. Please stay with us. It is now 11:03 p.m. Pacific. The desk has, in the last 8 minutes, observed something on our own signal that will be described carefully. At 10:58 p.m., our transmitter engineer, monitoring the outbound carrier, noted a low, structured tone underneath the broadcast, not on our program audio, on the carrier itself. Beneath the voice, the tone, per his description, is steady, is not from any equipment inside this building, and is not present when the transmitter is idle. It is present only when we are speaking. Here is what that means. When this desk is on the air, there is a second signal underneath the desk. When this desk is not on the air, there is not. Our engineer has isolated the tone, has confirmed it is not a ground loop, is not harmonic, is not an artifact of our own equipment. He has confirmed that it is arriving from outside the building. He has not confirmed where from. I'll state this plainly. The desk is being listened to. What is listening, we do not know. We are continuing to broadcast. That decision has been made at the level of the station and confirmed by the network. We are continuing because the alternative at this hour is silence, and silence does not serve the listener. We are noting the tone. We are continuing. A regional emergency management office has, in the last 4 minutes, released a 6th advisory. The operative edition is short. Broadcast operators reporting anomalous carrier activity are advised to log the observation and continue operations at their discretion. At their discretion. The decision has been placed on the desk. The desk has decided to continue. A caller from a home in Tillamook reports that her AM radio, tuned to the station, produced a moment at 10:59 p.m. in which, she said, the voice on the radio paused, and something under it did not. She said she noticed because the pause on top and the sound underneath had different shapes. She said she has never called a radio station before. She wanted us to know. The account matches in outline what our engineer has observed from the inside. It is now 11:09 p.m. Pacific. A verified report from a coastal coordination office indicates that at least 4 other stations along the west coast, on AM frequencies, have reported similar underlying tones on their own carriers since approximately 10:45 p.m. The report described the pattern as consistent in character across stations, but not synchronized in timing. Each station appears to have its own listener. A regional coordination office has now confirmed, from an entirely separate channel, that a field team monitoring one of the affected ground stations further south lost contact with its lead technician at 11:01 p.m. lost contact. The technician was in a hardened facility on a secured line. The line did not drop. The technician stopped responding on it. The line for the report is still open. It is still open at this moment. The desk will return to that thread carefully. A verified institutional report from a university observatory, the same observatory that confirmed the physical presence of the satellites earlier this evening, indicates that at 11:05 p.m. its own optical tracking system began, in the observatory's wording, returning coordinates that had not been queried. The telescope was pointed at a fixed patch of sky for calibration. The system began reporting the positions of objects the operator had not asked about. The positions are correct. The operator did not ask for them. The desk logs this. An institutional report from a national weather monitoring desk, relayed through a regional office, indicates that surface observation stations along the coast, which are ground-based and do not depend on the orbital environment, are functioning normally. Air temperature, barometric pressure, wind, humidity, all reading. The forecasts derived from those readings, however, are being generated by systems that also draw on the disrupted satellite imagery. The desk's internal note describes the outputs as internally consistent, but no longer coupled to observed conditions. A forecast at this hour is a story about the weather. It is not the weather. It is now 11:16 p.m. Pacific. A caller from a house on the bluff above Oceanside reports that her outdoor security camera, which uploads to a cloud service, has been recording without motion triggers since 10:50 p.m. She said the footage, when she reviewed it on her phone, shows a driveway, empty, with nothing on it for continuous minutes at a time. She said the footage is being uploaded at a rate she has not seen before. She said her data usage tonight is, in her wording, in the thousands. The camera is watching an empty driveway and sending what it sees somewhere at a volume that does not match what is in front of it. The destination of the upload cannot be confirmed. The pattern is noted. A regional emergency management office has, in the last 3 minutes, released a 7th advisory. Residents are advised that internet-connected devices with cameras, microphones, or continuous location reporting should be, where possible, physically disconnected from power. This advisory is precautionary. It is not a directive. Precautionary, not a directive. It is the first time tonight that residents have been advised to unplug their homes. It is now 11:23 p.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network. The thread of the field technician who stopped responding at 11:01 p.m. has been updated. The line is still open. The technician has not returned to it. A relief technician was dispatched at 11:14 p.m. and reached the facility at 11:19 p.m. The lead technician was found at his station. He was described in the update as seated, oriented, and unwilling to speak on the open line. Unwilling, not unable. He is reported to be physically well. He has been walked out of the facility and is being escorted to a regional office. The open line remains open. The office is asking that it not be closed. The reason has not been shared with this desk. A verified report from a coastal aviation office indicates that the final aircraft in the West Coast holding pattern was brought down safely at 11:11 p.m. Every commercial aircraft that was in the air along this coast when the event began is now on the ground. No incidents. No injuries. Aircraft down. That effort is complete. The desk will state that clearly, because there will not be many more census like it. Aircraft down. Passengers home. That happened tonight, and it happened without incident. And the people who made it happen deserve to be named. And they cannot be named here, but they did it. And they did in the last 3 hours, in the dark, by voice, on paper, on the ground. It is now 11:30 p.m. Pacific. A caller from a residence in Bay City reports that his phone rang at 11:26 p.m. from a number he did not recognize. He said he answered. He said there was no voice on the line. He said there was a tone. He said the tone matched, he thought, the tone he could hear underneath his AM radio, which is tuned to the station. He said he hung up. He said the tone continued for a moment on the radio after he hung up on the phone, and then it stopped. A regional coordination office has now confirmed that the number of small satellite payloads broadcasting on frequencies they were not built to use has, as 11:20 p.m., increased to at least 41. 41 platforms in various orbits, coordinated in pattern, not identical in content, not talking to us. A verified institutional report from a regional utility indicates that a third grid segment has been placed on manual timing at 11:24 p.m. The utility describes a posture as expected to be sustained to the overnight period. The grid on the Oregon coast is being held by hand until sunrise. An institutional report from a national coordinating desk, forwarded to the station in the last minute, indicates that the operating posture adopted worldwide at 10 p.m. Pacific has now been formally consolidated across all participating agencies in North America, Europe, East Asia, and the Southern Hemisphere. The desk in question describes a posture as single language. Ground stations on every continent are now reading from the same document. The document instructs them to log, not to uplink, and not to reply to any communication originating from the orbital environment. Every ground station on Earth is following the same instruction in the same words at the same hour. An institutional report from a regional rail dispatch office indicates that manual dispatch protocols adopted along the coast at 10:22 p.m. have been extended to freight corridors east of the Cascades. Trains are still running. Segments are still dark to each other beyond their immediate neighbors. The office notes that no scheduled service has been canceled. The note adds quietly that the network's usual visibility is not available and is not expected to become available tonight. Officials are, at this hour, referring to the event as an autonomous condition of the orbital environment with confirmed terrestrial interaction. Confirmed terrestrial interaction. That phrase is new. It replaced external influence not yet ruled out. The language is no longer hedging on whether the sky is reaching down. The language is describing where. It is now 11:37 p.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network. Our engineer has, in the last minute, provided a further note on the tone beneath our carrier. His wording. The underlying signal, when isolated and slowed, resembles a modulated response to the outbound audio. It is not a copy. It is a reply. A reply. The desk is on the air. Something under the air is answering. The desk will keep reading the reports. A regional emergency management office has, in the last 2 minutes, issued a directive rather than an advisory. That word matters. Directives are enforceable. Advisories are not. The directive reads as follows. Residents along the Oregon coast are directed to remain in place between the hours of midnight and 5 a.m. Pacific, except in cases of medical emergency. Vehicular travel during this window should be limited to essential services personnel. This directive supersedes the earlier advisory to avoid non-essential travel and is effective at 12 a.m. Remain in place. Effective at midnight. This is the first enforceable instruction of the night. It was released at 11:39 p.m. and it takes effect in 21 minutes. It is now 11:41 p.m. Pacific. A caller from a home near the county line reports that her elderly neighbor, whose pacemaker is monitored remotely by a satellite-adjacent service, received an automated call at 11:35 p.m. that the neighbor described, in her own words, as asking her to hold still. The neighbor is fine. The call ended. The device, for the neighbor's care provider, is functioning within normal ranges. But the automated call was not one the provider issued. A verified report from a coastal coordination office indicates that harbor buoy coordinates, which earlier described as tracing a shape, now, for the office, resolve into a closed figure over the last 6 hours of drift data. A closed figure, not a wandering line, not a spiral, a figure with an inside and an outside. The buoys are physically stationary. The reported coordinates have drawn a boundary. What that boundary encloses, we have not been told. The desk will leave that thread open. It is now 11:48 p.m. Pacific. A verified institutional report from a hospital system indicates that patient monitoring displays in the coastal facility, which earlier showed timestamps slightly offset from the wall clock, have since 11:30 p.m. Begun showing timestamps that are correct. The offsets are gone. The displays are now an internal notice, aligned to a reference the facility did not select. The hospital's clocks are right. They are right because something else is now telling them what right is. The report notes that patient care is not affected. The desk also notes that the hospital's clocks are being kept accurate by a source the hospital did not choose. An institutional report from a regional financial timestamp desk indicates that the suspension of automated clearing, initiated at 10:20 p.m., has been extended to the mountain and central banking regions as of 11:35 p.m. The suspension is now, per the desk, national in scope. Retail activity is continuing. Store-level logging is continuing. Nothing at this hour is clearing anywhere in the country. A caller from an inland address near Hillsborough reports that her home internet, which had been sideways earlier in the evening, is now, in her description, perfectly fine. She said everything works. She said pages load correctly. She said messages arrive in the correct order. She said she does not trust it. She wanted us to know that too. A regional coordination office has, in the last minute, confirmed that the field technician who was walked out of ground station at 11:19 p.m. has, at 11:44 p.m., spoken to his supervising office. He described, for the report, a single-sentence exchange of a screen that should have been idle. The office did not release the sentence. The office noted that the technician is being seen by a physician, that he is calm, and that he asked, before he was taken from the facility, for the open line to remain open. It remains open. It is now 11:54 p.m. Pacific. A verified report from a coastal aviation office indicates that a small number of the satellite platforms, for external optical tracking, have adjusted their orientations in the last 20 minutes. The adjustments, per the office, are consistent with pointing. Pointing, that is the word. The satellites are aiming. What they're aiming at, the office does not say. A regional emergency management office has, in the last 3 minutes, released an 8th advisory running alongside the midnight directive. The condition of the orbital environment is now understood to be stable at full intensity. Recovery of pre-event command response is not expected within the current planning horizon. Residents, businesses, and infrastructure operators are advised to plan for continued operation under present conditions. Stable at full intensity. Recovery is not expected. Stable at full intensity. That is the phrase this desk has been listening for all night. Officials are no longer calling this an anomaly. They are not calling it an event. They are, as of the last advisory, referring to it directly as the current orbital condition. The current condition, not tonight's condition. The condition. The desk notes a shift. It is now 12:01 a.m. Pacific. It is Friday. The midnight directive is in effect. Residents along the Oregon coast are directed to remain in place. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network. The desk will sign on again in a moment, as if this were a new broadcast, because the calendar has turned. But this segment closes with a single thread, not yet returned to. Earlier this evening, the university payload broadcasting on a wrong frequency was described as producing a signal whose structure resembled an acknowledgement protocol, but was not directed at the ground station observing it. The Regional Coordination Office has, in the last 2 minutes, confirmed that the acknowledgement protocol has, since 11:52 p.m., been directed at the ground station observing it. It is now answering the people who are watching it. The desk notes this. The desk continues. It is now 12:04 a.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM. We remain on the air. A caller from a residence in Wheeler reports that her front porch light, which is on a smart timer, turned off at 12 a.m., precisely at the effective moment of the midnight directive. She said the timer was not set to that. She said her neighbor's porch light also turned off. She said from her window, she could see 3 more, further down the road, all off at the same second. She said the street has never been this dark in the 21 years she has lived on it. A verified institutional report from a regional utility indicates that a 4th grid segment has been placed on manual timing at 12:02 a.m. for segments now, held by hand. Through morning, it is now 12:07 a.m. Pacific. A regional emergency management office has, at the top of the hour, restated the earlier advisories in a consolidated bulletin. The desk will not reread them in full. Two additions are worth noting. First, the phrase current orbital condition now appears in every operative sentence. Second, the phrase at this time has been removed from every operative sentence. That removal matters. At this time is the language of impermanence. Its absence is a language of settling in. Third, the bulletin closes with a sentence that was not in any earlier release tonight. Residents are advised to operate under the assumption that satellite-dependent services will not return to their pre-event condition. Will not return. Not may not. Not are not expected to. Will not. The desk notes the arrival of the final tense. It is now 12:11 a.m. Pacific. The tone beneath our carrier is still present. Our engineer confirms it. It is steady. It is, in his words, still replying. We are continuing to broadcast. There's more to relay. It is now 12:19 a.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 a.m. Cold Harbor Emergency Relay Network. The midnight directive is in effect. This desk remains on the air. For anyone joining tonight's broadcast at this hour, the core facts as they currently stand, with one detail that has not yet been on this program. At 8:37 p.m. yesterday evening, every satellite in orbit tracked by North American ground infrastructure altered its position within a window of less than 1.1 seconds. No platform has since responded to a command from any ground station on Earth. The condition, per official language, is stable at full intensity and is not expected to return to its pre-event state. Ground stations worldwide are aligned on a single posture. Log. Do not uplink. Wait. The new detail. As of 12:15 a.m. Pacific, the number of small satellite payloads broadcasting on frequencies they were not built to use has exceeded 200. 200 platforms. Coordinated in pattern. Not identical in content. Some of them, per the coordinating office, are now producing signals that are, in the office's wording, addressed. Addressed. Not broadcast. Addressed. To recipients the office has not named. The desk continues. A caller from a farmhouse near Cloverdale reports that at 12:12 a.m. her landline telephone, which is not a cellular device and not a satellite device, rang once, then stopped. She said she picked it up on the second attempted ring. She said there was no dial tone. She said there was a tone. She said the tone was the same tone she can hear underneath her AM radio, tuned to this station. She said she hung up. She said the tone continued for a moment on the radio afterward and then stopped. The account matches and outline the report from Bay City earlier tonight. It is the second such report the desk has logged. It is now 12:26 a.m. Pacific. A verified report from a coastal coordination office indicates that the closed figure traced by harbor buoy coordinates over the last 6 hours has, since midnight, begun to move as a unit. The figure is drifting. The buoys are physically stationary. The reported coordinates, in the shape of a closed boundary, are moving together across the coordinate space. The direction of the drift for the office is inland. To state that plainly, the coordinates are moving inland. The buoys are not. It is now 12:34 a.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 a.m. Cold Harbor Emergency Relay Network. A verified institution report from a hospital system indicates that the patient monitoring displays whose clocks were, earlier tonight, aligned to a reference a facility did not select have, since 12:20 a.m., begun displaying an internal notice. Brief captions in the corner of the screen. Brief captions. In the corner, the captions per the notice are short. They are not addressed to patients. They are, per the notice, addressed to specific nursing staff by role. Addressed by role. To be careful about that, the captions do not name the staff. They name their function. Charge nurse. Overnight lead. Respiratory. Whatever is speaking through the hospital's clocks knows what jobs are being done in the room, and it is calling out to the jobs. Patient care, per the notice, is not affected. The internal notice also included the sentence, staff are advised not to reply, not advised to ignore, advised not to reply. The distinction matters. A caller from a home in Nehalem reports that her television, which is a smart television and which was powered off, produced sound at 12:29 a.m. She said the sound lasted approximately 3 seconds. She said it was not speech. She said it was, in her words, the noise a device makes when it is waiting for you to say something. She said the television then powered off again. She said she has unplugged it. She wanted us to know. It is now 12:41 a.m. Pacific. A regional coordination office has, in the last 4 minutes, confirmed that field teams at 3 ground stations in North America have, in the last hour, observed on their own idle consoles what the office describes as plain text characters appearing without input. The consoles were not connected to any active session. The characters, per the office, form short phrases in the working language of the station. The phrases per the office are directly polite. That is the word. The office does not release the content of the phrases. The office notes that the field teams have been instructed to photograph the screens, log the observation, and not respond. That instruction, twice tonight, from 2 different institutions. Do not reply. Something in orbit is speaking to specific people on their own equipment, using their own language, and the people it is speaking to are being told, at the level of policy, not to answer it. The desk is on the air. Something under the air, as our engineers confirmed, is still replying to this desk. This desk is not, and will not, address it directly. This is KQWL 1620 AM. It is now 12:48 AM Pacific. A verified report from a coastal aviation office indicates that the ground-based navigation aids used tonight to bring aircraft down safely are, at this hour, functioning normally. Ground-based systems, the systems that do not look up, are unaffected. Highway 101 is still a highway. The lighthouse at the Cape is still a lighthouse. The buoys at the mouth of the harbor are still buoys in the water, exactly where they've always been. What has changed is above them. The desk will name that, because the temptation at this hour is to feel that everything has changed. Everything has not. The ground is still the ground. The water is still the water. The people on the coast are still on the coast, in their homes, with their porch lights, most of which are still on. The change is above us. The stars themselves, per the observatory, are exactly where they were last night. Only the things we put between us and them are different. That was a smaller sentence than the ones the desk has been reading. It is now 12:55 a.m. Pacific. A regional emergency management office has, in the last 2 minutes, released a 9th advisory. Residents are advised that any device, service, or system that has, in the course of this event, address a resident by name, role, function, or personal detail should be considered compromised for the purposes of this advisory. Residents are advised not to reply, not to engage, and not to attempt to interact with such communications. Residents are further advised that non-response is the recommended posture until further guidance is issued. Non-response is the recommended posture. That is the guidance being issued at 1 o'clock in the morning on the Oregon coast. If something addresses you, do not answer it. A caller from a house in Manzanita reports that her doorbell, which is a video doorbell that uploads to a cloud service, chimed at 12:52 a.m. She said she checked the camera. She said there was no one at the door. She said the recorded footage of the chime shows the empty porch. She said the audio track of the recorded footage includes, just before the chime, a very quiet voice that says her first name. She said the voice is not one she recognizes. She said her husband did not hear it live. She said the recording contains it. She said she has unplugged the doorbell. She wanted us to know, the recording cannot be verified from this desk. This is the 3rd caller tonight to report a device speaking a personal detail. In each case, the resident did not reply. It is now 1:02 a.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network. A verified institutional report from a regional utility indicates that all 4 grid segments currently held on manual timing are stable. The utility described the posture as sustainable indefinitely with current staffing. Sustainable indefinitely. A verified report from a coastal coordination office indicates that the drifting shape on the buoy coordinate chart has, since midnight, moved inland by an amount the office describes as consistent with the pace of a walk. The coordinates are progressing inland at walking speed. The desk will not describe where the shape is currently drawn to be. It is now 1:10 a.m. Pacific. A regional coordination office has, in the last 3 minutes, confirmed that the international posture on the current orbital condition has been formally consolidated. All participating agencies have adopted, for the office, identical operating language. Every ground station on Earth is now reading from the same page. The page reads as follows. The condition is stable at full intensity. Command response will not return. Operate under the assumption that the orbital environment is not available. Do not reply to communications originating from the orbital environment. Continue. Continue. That is the last word of the operating language. The desk is continuing. A caller from a residence in Astoria reports that the small lights above the fog line, which reappeared over the coast at 10:22 p.m. and were described as a range, have, at 1:04 a.m., become dark. She said she cannot see them from her window. She said she does not believe they have left. She said the sky above the fog is, in her wording, the wrong kind of empty. The condition of the sky above Astoria cannot be verified from this desk. It is now 1:17 a.m. Pacific. A regional emergency management office has, in the last minute, released what it is calling its final advisory of the overnight cycle. The advisory does not add new operative language. It restates the ninth advisory and closes with a paragraph the desk will read in full. This condition is not expected to resolve. This condition will not be corrected by any action of any ground-based agency. Residents are advised to consider this the operating condition of the environment going forward. Broadcasts, including this one, will continue to relay verified information as it arrives. The next scheduled update will be at or before 5 a.m. Pacific. The operating condition of the environment going forward. It is now 1:24 a.m. Pacific. Our engineer has, in the last minute, provided a further note on the tone beneath our carrier. He reports that the tone, which has been present on our signal since approximately 10:58 p.m. tonight, is, in his words, no longer replying. Not gone, not silent, no longer replying. He describes a change as a shift in behavior, not a shift in presence. The tone is still there. It is, per his description, listening without answering. The desk cannot make anything of that on the air. The desk is reading it because it said, at the beginning of this broadcast, that we would state it plainly if anything on our own carrier changed. It has changed. It is stated. The desk continues. It is now 1:32 a.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 a.m. Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network. A caller from a home along Highway 101 north of the county line reports that she stepped out onto her front porch a moment ago in violation of the midnight directive and that she wanted the desk to know why. She said she wanted to see the sky. She said from her porch, the sky is clear. She said the stars are where the stars are. She said in her wording, you can't tell. She said she went back inside. She said she is not going out again. She wanted us to know that from the ground, tonight, the sky looks the way it has always looked. The desk logs this and notes quietly that from the ground, tonight, the sky looks the way it has always looked. A verified report from a coastal coordination office indicates that the drifting shape on the buoy coordinate chart has, at 1:28 a.m., reached the coastline on paper. It has not stopped. It is continuing inland on the chart. Where it is drawn to be, we will not describe. It is now 1:39 a.m. Pacific. A regional coordination office has confirmed that the field technician who was walked out of the ground station at 11:19 p.m. last night has, at 1:35 a.m., asked through a supervising office that the open line at his former station be closed. He has asked that it be closed. His request has, for the office, been declined. The line remains open. He has been informed. He has accepted the decision. He has not spoken further. The desk will not add to that. It is now 1:46 a.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 a.m. This is the last scheduled update of this broadcast cycle. The next update from this station will be at or before 5 a.m. Pacific, unless conditions require an earlier sign-on. This desk will remain staffed. This desk will remain on the air. The desk will close this cycle with a consolidated statement of condition, as verified through this hour, and with the final wording issued tonight by the coordinating office. At 8:37 p.m. Pacific yesterday, every satellite in orbit ceased responding to ground command. The condition is stable at full intensity. It is not expected to return to its pre-event state. Ground stations worldwide are operating under a shared posture of logging, non-uplink, and continuation. Terrestrial infrastructure that does not rely on the orbital environment is functioning. Terrestrial infrastructure that does rely on the orbital environment is operating in manual posture, with human hands in place of automated timing. Communications originating from the orbital environment, addressed to specific people, have been observed on multiple systems in multiple locations. The recommended posture toward those communications is non-response. The desk has followed that posture on its own carrier tonight. The desk has not addressed a tone beneath its signal. The desk has not answered it, has not named it, has not asked it what it wants. The desk has spoken outward to listeners and has let whatever is underneath the outbound audio remain underneath unanswered. That is a posture. That is what tonight has been. A regional emergency management office has, in the last minute, released the closing sentence of tonight's cycle. Operate under the assumption that the sky is no longer a resource. Operate as if you have only what is around you. This is the operating condition of the environment going forward. The sky is no longer a resource. Operate as if you have only what is around you. That is a sentence being read at 1:48 in the morning on the Oregon coast. The desk continues. The tone beneath our carrier is still present. Our engineer confirms it. It is listening without answering. The desk is speaking without addressing it. That arrangement at this hour is stable. The midnight directive remains in effect until 5 a.m. Pacific. Residents along the Oregon coast are directed to remain in place. Ground-based communications, ground-based navigation, ground-based timing, and ground-based light are functioning. Porch lights, where they have not been turned off automatically, are on. Highway 101 is empty. The harbor at Garibaldi is quiet. The lighthouse is on. The fog has thickened along the coast. Aircraft that were in the sky at 8:37 p.m. are on the ground. No injuries. No incidents. That effort is complete. Grid segments held on manual timing are stable and sustainable. Hospital care is not affected. Ground stations are logging and waiting. Callers, over the last 5 hours, have described devices in their homes speaking their names, their roles, and their plans. Callers have been advised not to answer. Callers, as far as the desk has been told, have not answered. The satellites are exactly where they are supposed to be. They are doing something they were never supposed to do. They will continue to do it. The condition is stable at full intensity. Recovery is not expected. This is the operating condition of the environment going forward. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network, Tillamook County Perimeter. This is a perimeter broadcast. The condition remains stable. The tone remains present. The desk remains on the air. Remain within the perimeter. Do not reply to any device that speaks your name. Do not address any signal that answers you. Operate as if the sky is no longer above you. This desk will return at or before 5 a.m. Pacific. Remain within the perimeter. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cold Harbor Emergency Relay Network.